Welcome back to Havana Media. My name is Prof.Fred, and as usual, I'm going to be your host for today. Now, it's been long since we had a professor here. He has been having ups and downs, traveling abroad, coming back, so we've not been having that good in touch with him so that at least we can talk about the happenings in the country. But we thank God yesterday we had got Dan Lukurito, and we really explored some of the things. But having professor here too is going to be very much important, and it's going to be a boost on some understandings on what is happening based on the professions or based on how professor understands things and the way he's going to bring them in a different way. So I want us to talk about two things. And number one thing, professor, that I want us to talk about, yes, because I know these guys knows you, so there's no need of that introduction. I want us to talk about two things. Number one, I want us to talk about this issue of Adani.
Yes.
And I want us to look at it in a different angle from the way people are looking at it. There are two things here that I think we should look at. Why should this question of are Kenyans supposed to be worried about the Adani contract? And if no, why Kenyans are not supposed to be worried about the Adani issue? And then the second, we'll talk about this issue of the acting inspector general, but that we'll talk about later. First, let us focus on this Adani issue. Why Kenyans are not supposed to be worried about the contract that Kenya government has signed with Adani?
Yeah, first of all, let me take this chance to console Kenyans and tell them, as a governance expert, and when you hear that I'm a governance expert, it is not just someone throwing a name, because you see, we have the certifications, over 16 World Bank certifications on corporate governance. I'm a strategist, I'm an economist. I have been telling people that as far as I'm concerned, there is a way we can still be able to catch up with Adani plus William Ruto and all his machineries. Yeah. Let me explain this clearly. There are two types of licenses. There is what we call legal license to operate.
Yes.
And that license can be stolen, it can be given in the right way, it can be given in the wrong way. But the truth of the matter is that if it is something being given to a company that has to operate in Kenya, then we don't have to worry. For example, if you give De La Rue a contract to print money and they are based in US, the thing is that they can print them in the US and then import them here, isn't it? If you give a company to print ballot papers outside the country, they can operate in that country and then bring them here. So legal licenses can be stolen. It is not the most important license ever. Because look here, have you seen people saying I'm a doctor, but it's a fake doctor? You have seen people with a fake degree. So that contract can be as fake as it can get. Though the president is legitimizing this contract, or a contract to be signed, because I know they have not signed it, they have yet to sign it. So I'm telling Kenyans, even if they are to sign it, you should not worry about that license. Why? Because the first license being given is legal license to operate. Doctors have stolen some. Even a president can steal legal certificate for being elected. And then people reject you, just like people have rejected Ruto plus all of the Supreme Court declarations and IBC declarations and even American confirmations. When you have a certificate that people do not want, it's as good as nothing. Just like, for example, you can have even a marriage certificate, which is you to this woman, but that woman is not your wife, because she's lying in bed, she's in the kitchen, she's singing the songs of another man. She's in your sitting room, she's in your car, but she's not there, she's with another man. So legal license is like a marriage certificate. But who owns the heart of that woman? That's what is important. So I'm telling Kenyans that Adani can get the contract from the government of Kenya Kwanza. But will Adani get the social license to operate in Kenya? Because Adani must operate as an entity in the country. All the airport workers must work and cooperate and work for Adani. How will they work for him if they reject him? The results for Adani will be so detrimental. In fact, I can ask Adani Gautam himself and tell him that as a governor, please consult me on this matter. If I'm you, I would drop that deal, because the legal license to operate, you will get it in a briefcase. But how will you operate in the streets of Kenya, in Kisumu, in Eldoret, in Mombasa, in Malindi, when people reject you? Will you be hearing people, Adani must go for the 30 years we'll be here? I think that's depressing. Even before you ask a woman's hand in marriage, normally you have to win her heart. So can't we get a company that has won Kenyan's heart first, which gets the social license to operate first before getting the legal license to operate? You know, Bonnie, as one of the profound analysts in cases, you cannot wait to confirm yes or no whether a woman wants to marry you on the wedding day. If you do that, the wedding cannot happen.
It must be a process, eh?
It must be, no, the woman must have said yes in the bedroom somewhere, in the corridor, whatever, in the car, you know. Like I remember my wife that I married, I'd been a professor in Strathmore for a few years, like 2-3 years. We're dating, and I was wondering whether I need to get married or not. And because as a man, sometimes there are some women who flash their face on you and you wonder whether. I remember when I was in the parking in Meru, when there used to be Nakumatt Meru, I said that, well, I took a trip in the Mount Kenya, driving everywhere, seeing Maua and the rest, but I say, my life is nothing without that woman. So that was just towards the Christmas break. I was doing this trip during Christmas break. Then I called and I told her, babe, we need to talk. I need to know what's going on. So I reduced my Christmas break. I drove all the way to Voi, met and I told her that I'm thinking we need to start taking life seriously. And eventually I proposed to her on Valentine's Day, is when I married her later on in August, 15th of August.
Same year.
So why do we usually propose before we start processing the license?
To save yourself from embarrassment.
From embarrassment. So Adani should have proposed to Kenyans and see whether Kenyans will embrace them and work with them. Adani could have talked to stakeholders. And something also very important, the second thing which is key. You see, for example, somebody gave Talo license to drill oil in Lake Turkana.
Yes.
Do you know one of those machines used for drilling oil, one of them you cannot afford to buy them because they're very expensive. Some of them you can be rented for, you lease it for $250,000 per day. Now, if government of Kenya gives you a certificate to go and drill oil in Talo for 30 years, and then for 1 year, people of Turkana says, we don't want you, which means that machine will be packed. What is your cost per day? So that's how detrimental it is. If you don't get the social license to operate fast, is when you look for the social license to operate. So on a wedding day, you're not looking for the social license. On a wedding day, you are looking for the legal license. You've seen papers saying a man who was about to get a wedding, then a wedding was broken into.
Yeah.
Or the bridegroom never turned up. Or the man collapsed when another man came and ran away with the bride. It means this man is trying to get the license on the day of the wedding, the social license. On the day of the wedding, that's why after all the paraphernalia of wedding, you sit on the table and you get the thing signed by yourself, by your wife, the best maid, and the best man, and then the priest witnesses. That is now after the social license had been won. And Adani can think they are playing towards thinking that the government of Kenya Kwanza, Ruto administration, can give them the legal document they need to run airport. But you know that people are more than policemen. How will they be having policemen everywhere in the airport guarding him? Will he ever want to sit in Kenya restaurant and have a cup of tea and say, people, thank you? I remember when Bob Collymore was the CEO of Safaricom. Bob Collymore used to be a friend because I used to do consultancy for Safaricom. Bob told me sometimes when he's actually open, people tell him that, please, don't mishandle our Safaricom, please. We know you are not a Kenyan, but we love you. Please take care of our telecom. You know, people have loyalty because this question Adani is about loyalty Kenya have uzalendo. Because uzalendo is what you fall in love with your Kenyan product. That's why no one should castigate Kenyans when they are mad because airport is not about commercial. Actually, before commercial, we consider sovereignty. We consider uzalendo tuko nayo, the what I call the patriotism that Kenyans have. Kenyans have to patronage. Remember, some people book KQ, even if it's more expensive than any other airline, just because what does it feel to sit in your career? I can tell you, Bonnie, one day, when I was studying in Barcelona, there's a time I took a flight from Barcelona to Heathrow, and it was British Airways. So I had not gotten a transit visa that I can land in Heathrow, then get into another BA to bring me to Nairobi. So when I landed in Heathrow, these people said, no, you have no transit visa, so we'll deport you. I told them, no, take me to Kenya. I said, no, not Kenya. We deport you back to Barcelona. So I was so mad. Eventually, because I was a student on scholarship, my PhD director booked quickly, when I was still in London, a ticket where I was going to take Air Italia from Barcelona, land in Rome, and there the beast was, KQ. You know, when I saw KQ landing in Rome, moving towards me, the doors being opened, it is a feeling you cannot even comment. You can see even my goosebumps are here. Because that is patriotism. Adani could have found a way on which Kenyans can love him the way they have loved Kenya Airways. That love can patronize the brand. When you call it KQ, Kenya Airways. In fact, even Kenya Airways is not romantic. KQ.
KQ, yeah.
Yes. And then now you're telling us KQ will not have the same rights you'll be having. You know, the parking rights in airport, Kenya Airways pays something like $100. But other airlines pay like $1,000. Of course, even Kenya Airways landing in other countries, they also pay higher compared to a local airline. That's not a problem. But I think landing in Kenya, when you hear those women in Kenya saying, mabibi na mabwana. Unasikia? Sasa hapo kwa ndege na atakuwa anasema hiyo. So I'm trying to say that the social license to operate can be seen in the bottom line of the organization. So even if Adani thinks that Ruto is the president and can be able to outmuscle Kenya with the guns and tear gas and the rest and get him the deal, it will smell in the balance sheet. Allow me to use this word. The balance sheet will become balance sheet. You know, shit. The
balance sheet will become the balance sheet.
Yes, so you'll see the shit in the balance sheet. Because the emotions Kenya love KAA with, the emotions Kenya love even the carriers there, operators there, and the cooperation with the groundsmen, air controller.
The organization.
When you are going to an airport of yours, every day in the morning, people go there. When you go to an airport that belongs to you, how do you feel? It feels
you feel proud.
Totally different. Imagine that has been taken. Emotions are more important than commercial part of it. And I want to ask Adani that the best thing to do, he could have said that I've been offered this thing. Let me step backwards and talk to Kenyans. How do you want it? Do you know that can bring a lot of respect? Stepping back is not for someone who is stupid. It's not for people who are weak. Actually, the weaker you are, the stronger you are. St. Paul said that. I'm sure tomorrow you're going to preach in church. So you can actually tell these people that this is a time that weakness is actually strength. And strength is weakness. So if Adani thinks that he has all that money, it won't run. The second point I wanted to bring across, you know, as a professor of strategy and corporate governance, there is this question that in whose interest should an organization be run? So some people believe that you should run the organization in the interest of shareholders because they're the ones who put their money, and shareholder interest comes first. I've written so many articles, published around it, and said no. It is not, it takes more than money to succeed in life. It takes more than money to succeed in business. The most people you want to have first, who are your partners? Second, who are your employees? Talk to any seasoned businessman or woman who has succeeded. They tell you that forget about the shareholders. The first, who are your partners? The partners. Now, if Adani is a partner to William Ruto, who has no social capital, that's a disaster. The partners for Kenya, for Adani, could have been the Kenyan investors, for example, the guy who does the ground management, isn't it? The Kenyan investors who have invested in Kenya Airports Authority, NAS who provides food there. If those partners are your friend, you can go to heaven and your balance sheet will look good. But if your balance sheet is controlled by the relationship between people who have been rejected, basically William Ruto has been rejected in Kenya. They rejected him from the first decision he ever made. The first speech they made during inauguration, the Kenyans rejected because they told Kenyans lies that the country is too broke to do anything. In front of the national scene, remember, inaugural speech is watched more than any other speech ever.
Yeah.
The whole world was watching Kenya handing over power and the speeches. So
and I've come to realize any moment William Ruto does a mistake, people gets back to that first speech.
Yeah, because of course that's what Trump, for example, when Trump was being inaugurated, he said that he's only going to work with any country that works according to American national interest. And that's what he did throughout. That's why he was fighting with China. So your policy should be, your inaugural speech is the most important speech. Like the speech you make after your wedding, or the speech you make after signing an agreement. Yeah. That's the most important. Then after that, of course, the cabinet was rejected. The first supplementary budget, rejected. The bottom-up economic model, rejected. Finance bill, finance act, supplement, all those ones rejected, are rejected. Yeah. Adani deal, rejected. Privatization act, rejected. So if your partner is the one who is most rejected, you must be able to think twice. So Adani, Gautam, as a businessman, listen to me. I'm not addressing William Ruto. You are addressing Adani. Because for me, and I can tell you, Boniface, I have decided deliberately to stop addressing William Ruto. Yeah. I will talk to other people who might listen. Because we have talked enough, and I think that Ruto is someone destined to get lost. So they say in Kikuyu that if your friend is destined to get lost, they don't meet a friend. A friend will tell you that, Boniface, this route you are following is going to hell. You say, no, this is heavenly. So according to me, let's address Adani as a person that somebody who has been rejected overwhelmingly is a bad business partner. I can talk this when I grew up in the village of Ugenya, and there's something I saw. There's a time when we had a funeral in my great-grandmother's house, and some people brought music from a very far distant village called Masiro. So when they came, people are dancing. I know people are looking for girls to dance with. So there used to be a very nice brown girl who used to be in the village there, and she was beautiful before you engage on other things. So this man saw this woman, and he was asking her to dance. All of a sudden, the woman agreed. They were dancing, they were dancing until they're holding each other. Mpaka hata music imeisha, they are still dancing. They are continuing dancing. Yes. The music imeingia kwa mwazo. Yeah. Well, do you know what happened? That woman used to be mad. She was a mad woman. But this man knew amepata catch. Unaona? So before you go to do business anywhere, have local contact. Adani could have talked to us like consultants, economists, and asked us, this is what I want to do. How could you go about it? But running by saying I met the president, it does not work. Because so that is a total failure. So I'm trying to say this. It is the Kenyan employees who wake up from their home, who has worked in KA from since beginning. Some of them are actually almost retiring. The only place they have known is KAA. They would have loved to still see it KAA. They could have loved to see the pride of Africa. They could have still continued to love to see the pride of a Nairobi hub, which is JKIA and other airports. So for me, losing that one, I'm telling Adani, whether you get it or not, it will smell in the balance sheet, it will not work. And to answer the question I asked, in whose interest should a business be run? The most important question from all my publication and research will be the employee, because in spite of the fact that you're investing capital as a capital owner, these people invest their intellect, they invest their human capital, they invest their time. Some of them work 12 hours a day. Some have overtime there. Some of them, even the overtime doesn't pay them well, but they're just earning this overtime to ensure that the pride of Africa continues in the sky. I remember when I was advising one of the airlines, we came out with a saying, wheels up. Whenever an airline has their wheels up, they're doing well. Anytime you are packed, you're doing badly. So we always tell an employee, do everything to keep the wheels up. So with the Adani thing, will the wheels continue staying up? And for the Kenyans who have braced the cold, the rain, the heat, the COVID, to keep the wheels of Kenya Airways up, and to keep Nairobi as a hub, as a home to KQ up, what do they feel? Even if they die, even on their deathbed, How dejected do they feel? This is how serious this is. And I can tell you, Kenyans, don't worry. Adani will collapse in its own weight because they have not considered the most fundamental thing, which is social license to operate. Those certificates will be given to them in the corridor. They can be signed in State House. But Kenyans control the street where the money is made. And they are going to collapse in State House.
So, Professor, you're trying to say that suppose the Adani came in the right way, like they could have come, talked to Kenyans that we want to do this. Okay, like the government wants us to do this, but we feel like we need to engage workers, we need to engage Kenyans, so that at least before we do anything, we know your mindset. The Kenyans could, Adani could have gotten the contract.
Yeah, look, first of all, let me explain this because this deal of Adani falls under the PPP Act, Public-Private Partnership Act. If you go to Section 40, is where we talk about the PIP, Privately Initiated Project. Now, according to Privately Initiated Project, it is not what Kenyan government want. It should be that Adani did their research and spotted an opportunity on how to work in the best interest of Kenya while making money.
And Professor, just with that,
yes,
can you connect with this question that how did Adani come to know that Kenya wanted a new airport?
Yeah, actually that's what I'm connecting to.
Yeah.
So according to PIP, it should be that Kenyans were ignorant about what's happening. It's like I see you, you are living in a home and you are not making so much money, but you are profitingly surviving. Then I can tell you, Boniface, why don't you just go stay in this other place and renovate this home and make it heavenly? Then every time you make money, you give me 20% of it. So it's not you who has seen it, it's the vision comes from you. So according to this, the vision should have come from Adani. But I can tell, again, you're forcing me to talk about William Ruto, but I talk about the letter which was signed by the president trying to illustrate what is the Adani case. And the president was trying to talk as if this is solicited proposal. No, there's a difference. In the PIP Act, there are two ways of getting tenders. One is privately initiated project, which comes from the investor. The other one is solicited proposal that comes from the government saying, we want to expand the airport, so give us your proposals. So the president's letter talks as if it is solicited proposal, but the content of the draft proposal is PIP. Why were they avoiding PIP? Because why were they avoiding solicited one? Because solicited one is competitively assessed. So Adani, by the very fact they did not want to go through competitive bidding, while this is the initiative of Kenya, look at what the president said there. I may quote some few things. That there was a lot of leakages in the airport, isn't it? Those are internal Kenya, isn't it? So they were sending messages to Adani by saying airport is leaking. They talk about these cancellations of planes. They were the ones who discovered and told Adani that we don't have enough parking space. So the letter of the president is the most difficult thing. In fact, the incompetency of the person who advised him to write that letter is on the roof. And I would tell you that I don't think those people are helping him. So in short, they did not want to go through solicited one. And somebody from Kenya must have told Adani that, hey, there's an opportunity here, come for it. And let me be open about it. My position is that the president initiated the thing to Adani. So it is presidentially initiated project, not privately initiated project.
So the P for the private is the president's?
The P is president. Why? The president was in India some time back and he never met Modi. He met and he was welcomed. Go to the internet and do your research. He was welcomed by the Minister for Chemicals. Adani invests heavily on chemicals. In that clip, if you look, Adani was not very far from center of view, isn't it? And I think that even the visit to India was what initiated this private initiated project, which is now presidential initiated project, which is being disguised as solicited proposal, which is not. So the president must have told Adani, and that's why Senate asked him, who knew these things and who told Adani all these things? Because the information, the justification for the proposal, all of them look internally known problems. But you see, the PIP normally that the person outside knows something you do not know. Like, for example, Bonnie, you're not yet married, eh? The day you'll get a woman who will change your life, she will come and tell you, you know, Bonnie, if you want to go on show, dress this way. And you may find that your show start to pick up faster. So it is not this is a PIP from your wife. So according to me, the question is, from then secondly, why Adani?
Yeah.
If you look at some of the best airports in Africa, like Oliver Tambo, Rakesh Airport, while globally we have Doha, Adani has not done them. Normally you pick the best in class, even the one of Singapore is among the best. Why is Kenya Kwanza telling us about they want us to be as world class as Singapore, but their choices are looking like Somalia? Why do you look like Juba in your choices while you want to take us to Singapore? So why didn't you pick the company that did the Singapore airport, the one that did the one in Doha? Swissport is always around here. So according to me, why Adani is because there is a kickback here and is being pushed by all means. Money has been paid. Also, there is money laundering because Adani has been known for money laundering. What you're talking about, money being brought here, is a joke because some people in Kenya have stolen so much money, they don't know how to bring that money in circulation. I can bet on this one. This one I can bet, and I'm willing to put my life on the line for it. You know, Expressway. Expressway we were told that we took a loan from the Chinese to build Nairobi Expressway, isn't it? While a Kenyan financed it, and it was built by the Chinese. And they told us Chinese will collect toll for 50 years, isn't it?
Yes.
But the person collecting that fee is not Chinese, is a Kenyan. Here also you'll hear that Adani will operate our airport for 30 years, but the person who will be operating the airport and collecting that money is somebody. Because I look at the money needed there, 260 billion shillings, isn't it? William Ruto is worth 2.8 trillion. What stops him from financing?
From financing. Because, you know, at the end of the day, it benefit from it.
Yes, so Adani just becomes a proxy, but the real investor is these Kenyans who are flashing money, watches. So these rich Kenyans, in fact, Murkomen even escape that. I think Murkomen can afford to finance this one himself.
And Professor, you know, I've been asking myself that I think CS Chirchir is putting decided just to land into a bigger problem because the person that was supposed to be questioned on this was Murkomen.
In fact, the decision the state make on the background, when you know what they are considering when they are doing this cabinet reshuffle, it's very different from when you are looking at it from
the outside,
the public. So these people had known that Adani will explode. And because they knew Adani will explode, they decided to change Chericher there. And then therefore put Murkomen in sports. So why is Chericher not answering those questions? Again, I fault Senate. Why are you questioning someone who has no decision on it? When was Adani decision made? Why are you questioning Chericher? So according to me, all these are ploy where Kenyans are being deceived in broad daylight and being misled. And I can say, God says that my people suffer because of ignorance. And I want Kenyans to thoroughly investigate those things. According to me, this is going to be a Kenyan private investor investing in the airport using Adani as a decoy. And then they'll become, because see, if you have stolen 1 trillion, because Auditor General report says that in the last financial year, the government cannot account for 1 trillion.
1 trillion.
Isn't it? So if we cannot account for 1 trillion and we are looking for 260 billion, why don't you take that money as an individual and invest in the airport and then you own the airport? Isn't it? Yes, why don't you? And I can also tell you in all honesty, as an economist, we know that KAA, Kenya Airport Authority, has a total revenue minimum in all the years, the least they have ever collected is 18 billion a year. And they have gone up to 35, isn't it? So if you take just the worst case scenario, which is 18 billion, times 30, is 540
Yeah, 540.
billion.
Yeah, 540.
Yet we are auctioning the airport at 260 billion. Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
KAA is among the richest parastatals Kenya ever had. I remember William Ruto wanted to privatize these things, and he wanted to buy them through privatization. But again, Kenyans went to court, like us. I went to court. We stopped it. Now, Adani deal is being done to capture what he lost with the Privatization Act. So it's clear that there is no business sense for Adani. He wouldn't do it. I've told you. It only makes corruption sense. It does not make business sense for Kenya Airports Authority. It doesn't make sense for the Kenyan citizens. You cannot tell me you want to take my sovereignty just because you want to give me a job. For now, I'm the son of Ogola. If you tell me to go on camera and decline that I'm not son of Ogola, then you can give me food, I'll tell you forget about it. So I'm a Kenyan. You cannot give us a job or any material thing and take away our sovereignty. The sovereignty of Kenya is supreme. The Constitution acknowledges. And I think that we cannot lose sovereignty in the altar of commercial viability. So I can tell you, the only sense it makes is corruption. Commercial sense for Adani, no way, because I've told you. You'll smell the shit in the balance sheet.
The balance sheet.
For Adani. At the same time, Kenyans will lose touch with that organization. The person who wants to use the money he has stolen to wash the money through the airport and do fraud, isn't it? Fraudulently, isn't it? Money laundering. That's the only person this thing makes sense to. Because if you have 1 trillion, which bank will accept you to deposit 1 trillion?
You can't deposit the whole.
But if you give the money to Adani in Dubai, then Adani comes to invest that money here, isn't it? Then we don't know whether these people are directors in that entity that will be doing the business. So as they collect their money from the airport, they are giving you the money. Is it not that you are cleaning your money?
So they are bringing you your money back.
So that's the best way people do to clean their money.